name is Mark Rosenzweig. I got diagnosed in 2013, and I'm lucky enough to meet some and see some familiar faces on the screen. So I really do appreciate it. And we can give you some great information. Um, so here we go. And I'm going to launch a couple polls. So the first one we're going to launch. I got so many polls there. All right. How many ALK talks have you attended? And then the second part of the question is, if yes, live or recorded, or have you watched both? Okay, I'm going to end the poll, share the results. And like I said before, the recording doesn't pick our recording doesn't pick up the results. So 4 or more is 54%, 21%. This is your first time visiting us. 13%, 1 to 2, 2 to 3 is 11%. And then the number one thing, you do watch live recordings. Actually, 21% you both watch live and recorded. So I'm stop sharing that one and then go to our next one. Whoops. Launch this one. Okay, where do you get educated on ALK lung cancer? My oncologist, friends, family, ALK Talks, Facebook support group. And this is a multiple, you can answer more than one source.
I'm not seeing the poll.
Oh, okay. Well, 62 people do see the poll, so I don't know why not. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll, share the results. Number one answer is 69%, you're oncologist. Well, excuse me, ALK Talk, 78%. And we got 69% of my oncologists, 68% ALK positive website, and 60% Facebook support group. And then we have family and friends are kind of the same thing. So those are the two basic polls that I wanted to launch. Just give us an idea of where we're standing with where we get our information from. ALK 101, why do we do it? Why do we launch these 4-part series? For 2 years, we've talked about doing something similar to this and educating people, and we finally put it together. And I want to thank Colin Barton, Ellie Urban, Mark Muskovich, Emily Vanazi, Jeff Sturm, and Dr. Ken Kelver for helping us develop this series. This is our first part, and this will launch us into the reasons after you get diagnosed, what happens. So we're going to start from the beginning, and then we're going to kind of go through the journey of having ALK positive lung cancer. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's contributing, and really appreciate it. And I'm going to pass over to Summer.
Hi, I'm Summer Farman, ALK positive patient, diagnosed in summer of 2020. And I work with Mark on the ALKtALK team. Exactly what he's saying. We've been saying for 2 years, okay, there needs to be like an orientation for getting ALK positive lung cancer, some type of survival guide, right? If you come into the Facebook group, you're thrown to the wolves, which are full of education and hope and inspiration, but and also we do these ALK talks, bringing on ALK experts to share new research and knowledge with us. But again, we felt like there has to be something more from day one. What do we wish that we knew? And also twofold, we feel like as amazing as the Facebook support group is we're still missing a lot of people that aren't on Facebook. So we wanted to have a resource available to everyone from the point of diagnosis. You Google ALK positive, you hear the words from your oncologist, you Google it, and hopefully you find this resource. So yes, this has been a long time coming. We are so excited. We've been brainstorming since the summer with, like Mark said, with a lot of minds, and are excited to bring this 4-part series to you. So tonight, starting back at Wish You Wish You Knew from the beginning, right? Or if you're just diagnosed, I have ALK positive lung cancer. Then on March 19th, if you want to note these dates, they're also in your mailing, but on March 19th, Jeff Sturm will take us through assembling and managing your care team. Who should be on that team, how it can change throughout your diagnosis or your cancer journey. Then on April 2nd, we will have Colin Barton taking us through I've Progressed, Now What? This is kind of what even started our whole brainstorm, is Colin's PDF that cycles through the Facebook support group, that we know, you want to be ready, right? When you're in that CT scan, you want to know, what are my options, A, B, and C. You want to be empowered and hopeful. And we hope to do that with part 3. And then also on April 30th, we have Mark and Emily doing part 4, Life After Lorlatinib. And that will just take us through what are your options after all FDA approved TKIs are exhausted. And how do you access these options? So yes, we are so fortunate that all of you are joining us, and we're so fortunate to have all these great minds behind the scenes helping us to create this. So after we watch Ellie's presentation, then we will have a question and answer session. You can, as we go through too, feel free to put questions in the chat. And Jeff Sturm, ALK Positive Research Accelerated Committee member, Clinical Trial Committee member, and University of Michigan ALK Research Patient Advisor, will be helping us to field those questions, along with Dr. Colin Barton, former Medical Committee Chairman, current Chairman of the ALK Positive Longitudinal Study, and also former ALK Positive Board member. And then also our very own Dr. Ken Culver, straight out of the Dominican with us this evening, our ALK Positive Director of Research and Clinical Affairs. So without further ado, Colin, take it away, please.
Thanks for that introduction, Summer. And yeah, this is just absolutely wonderful what Summer and Mark have been doing with the ALKtALK program. Really, it's an asset that I know I didn't have when I started my journey, and I know Jeff didn't have it when he started his journey. And I'll give you just a very short idea of the difference nowadays compared to when Jeff and Mark were diagnosed. Jeff's an 8-year survivor. And how many years for you, Mark?
I'm going to my 10th year.
10th year, that's fantastic. And when Mark and Jeff were diagnosed, there were no ALKtALKs, there were no summits. And the expectation for survival was maybe 1 year to 2 years. We didn't have alectinib as first line. We didn't have certainly any idea of lorlatinib coming along, anything like that. So for the patients that are diagnosed nowadays, there's a whole host of assets available for education, all the recordings on the YouTube site that ALK Positive has, and so on. So really a great thing, and this is going to add to the list of resources that are available. So I'm going to try to pull up a very short PowerPoint presentation. And can everyone see this okay?
Yep.
Terrific. So today's presentation will be by Ellie Urban. She is not able to attend live, but she has pre-recorded the presentation. And as Mark mentioned earlier, I've just been diagnosed with ALK lung cancer. Now what? Today's ALKtALK will be recorded, and the recording will be available within a few days on the ALK Positive YouTube channel. And for those of you that are not familiar with that, I will show you later on after the presentation how to access that. So just briefly, I'll be doing this intro, and then we'll view the pre-recorded presentation, which runs around about 40 minutes. And then I'm going to do a very short PowerPoint presentation after that, maybe about 5 minutes or so, just to add on to what Ellie presented, just some extra thoughts that I have. And then we'll open it up to question and answer, and Jeff and myself, and certainly Ken Culver will also be helping out on that. So a little bit about Ellie. Ellie is a medical doctor, a specialist in psychiatry. She is care partner to her husband, an ALK positive cancer patient. And Ellie likes to work quiet in the background, even though she does an enormous amount of work. And she volunteers for the not-for-profit organisation, which is called ALK Positive Inc., which puts on this ALKtALK. And she also contributes on an almost daily basis to the ALK Positive Worldwide Support Group, lending her very, very knowledgeable comments there. So I want to thank Ellie publicly for her enormous efforts over the years, sharing her time, knowledge and skills to help improve outcomes for the ALK positive community. And with that, Mark, if you'd like to run Ellie's presentation.
Hello, my name is Ellie, and I want to talk to you today about ALK positive lung cancer. Today is the first in a series of 3 seminars that we're going to call ALK 101. And ALK 101 is the way our members can share their experiences with you so you can learn about ALK positive lung cancer and hopefully get the best treatment possible, learn to live with this illness. Today's session is called I've just been diagnosed with ALK positive lung cancer. Now what? So we're going to talk about what you should do next. I want to let you know that what we're going to talk about today are the experiences of people who are in the ALK positive Facebook group. There's thousands of members worldwide in this group, and they share their treatment, their diagnosis, their experiences, how they're doing psychologically. We really share a lot of information. So today we want to put that information together and give it to you so you can learn more about ALK positive lung cancer. Importantly, what we talk about today is not endorsed by medical professionals. We are not doctors. Anything we talk about, we want you to review with your own doctor because we don't want to give you any medical advice here today. Our talk today is centered on stage 4 ALK positive lung cancer, and that's because most people are diagnosed at stage 4. Now, I think people at earlier stages would probably still benefit, but what we talk about today is stage 4 ALK positive lung cancer. We're not talking about any other kinds of lung cancer either. The format we're going to do today is frequently asked questions. In our support group, a lot of people, especially when they're first diagnosed, ask the same questions many times. So we've got those questions together and we've got the answers for you. So we're kind of predicting what you might want to know about ALK positive lung cancer, and we're going to share it with you today. Here I'm being recorded. I can't come to the meeting on Sunday night, so I've recorded my talk today, but afterward there's going to be a question and answer session. So if you have questions, go ahead and write them down and save them. And then when I finish, there's going to be people who are live from the ALKtALK group who are going to be able to answer your questions. So a little bit about me. My name is Ellie. My husband is diagnosed with ALK positive lung cancer. He was diagnosed in 2016, and he started his treatment in a clinical trial of brigatinib, and he's still on that medicine 6.5 years later. My work in the ALK positive group involves being on the medical committee. I do have a medical background, but not in oncology. But I've learned so much about ALK lung cancer by volunteering for the medical community in ALK positive lung cancer. So we want to share this with you. I hope you would also consider volunteering for ALK positive because it's really a wonderful experience. So let's move on. The first question that people ask is, what is ALK positive lung cancer? What is it? So ALK stands for anaplastic lymphoma kinase. And ALK, anaplastic lymphoma kinase, is a protein that regulates cell growth within the cell. So the ALK gene, which is in the DNA, tells the body how to make the ALK protein. So the gene has kind of the roadmap for how the body's going to make this ALK protein that then regulates cell growth. Unfortunately, with ALK positive lung cancer, there's a mutation in the ALK gene. And this mutation in the ALK gene causes ALK positive lung cancer. The mutation causes uncontrollable cell growth. So you have a normal ALK gene, it gets mutated, and then the cells in the lungs will grow out of control. So that's ALK positive lung cancer. Our next question is, why did I get ALK positive lung cancer? Why me? How did this happen? Now, right now, there's no known cause of ALK positive lung cancer. We don't know what causes it. It's not associated with any risk factors or any carcinogens. So we have no idea what people with ALK might have been exposed to that would cause the illness. We don't know even if exposures cause ALK positive lung cancer. One of the theories is that ALK positive lung cancer is caused by a random mistake that happens during cell division. So when cells divide, one cell gives DNA to the other cell, and it could be there's some kind of error there. The ALK gene gets mutated, and then ALK lung cancer comes about. This mutation happens sometime after birth, and this is really important. So this means that you don't inherit ALK positive lung cancer and you don't pass it on to the next generation. So this is not an inherited gene problem like you might get with breast cancer. This is a mutation that happens after birth. So you don't have to worry about passing it on to someone else in your family. Next question is, who else has ALK positive lung cancer? Just a moment. So what we know is that ALK positive lung cancer is rare. This pie chart here is all lung cancers and the mutations that can happen with them. If you notice, unknown is the most common mutation. So we don't know what causes lung cancer in a lot of people. But there are other biomarkers or mutations like ALK that can cause lung cancer. But if you see, ALK is just this tiny sliver here. So ALK is only about 3 to 7% of lung cancers. So it's rare in general, and it's rare among lung cancer. Why this is important is because ALK lung cancer is so rare, there's a lot of doctors who just don't know how to treat it. They're used to treating regular lung cancer, or they're used to treating all kinds of cancers. So they don't know about ALK lung cancer. They don't know how to treat it. They haven't kept up with the literature. And so that can create a problem in terms of getting the correct treatment because ALK lung cancer is so rare. And you might find that your primary care doctor hasn't even heard of ALK lung cancer. To continue this subject, 1/2 of those with ALK lung cancer are diagnosed age 52 or younger. So the middle age for the diagnosis of ALK positive lung cancer is 52. This is a very young age for lung cancer. The average age for regular lung cancer is about 70. So people with ALK lung cancer are much younger than the usual lung cancer person. 72,000 people are diagnosed with ALK worldwide each year. So if you think about that, 72,000 out of the billions of people in the world, it's extremely rare in that way. Most people with ALK lung cancer are diagnosed at stage 4. And unfortunately, the cancer metastasizes before diagnosis or spreads through the body. This is because lung cancer in general, ALK in particular, doesn't cause many symptoms. So people don't know when it's growing inside of them. And then also a big problem with ALK is because it's not associated with risk factors or carcinogens, the doctors don't suspect that you have ALK positive lung cancer or lung cancer in general. So a lot of people will have a chronic cough, They'll go to their doctor, they'll be diagnosed with bronchitis or asthma or so many things. They have a chest x-ray, it's negative, and they go to doctor after doctor, and no one even thinks of lung cancer because it's a young person without risk factors. So that's a real problem with ALK lung cancer. And there's no screening for younger people who don't have risk factors for lung cancer. Only people who've smoked have routine screening available. So unfortunately, most people diagnosed with ALK are in the later stages of the illness. The next thing that I want to talk about is survival. But I know a lot of people don't like talking about survival. And so I want to give you the option of turning off your volume if you don't want to hear about survival. And then when it's time to turn your volume back on, I'll give you a thumbs up like this, and you can turn your volume back on. So go ahead and turn off your volume now, unplug your earplugs, whatever you need to do. So in terms of survival, we don't really know how long people survive with ALK lung cancer. There are some people who are able to survive for years, and there's other people who have a shorter survival. One of the things we see now is that the treatment for ALK positive lung cancer is progressing really rapidly. And the treatment that we're doing today is not the same as the treatment even 3 years ago. So we suspect that the survival for ALK positive lung cancer is getting longer and longer. So even if you look back on the survival of ALK positive just a few years ago, it doesn't reflect what's happening today. So we don't know how long the survival is for ALK positive lung cancer. Some people don't survive more than a few years. Other people survive many, many years. And unfortunately, we can't tell who's going to survive in a short period so we can help them more. One thing that people do and family members will do is Google the survival for stage 4 lung cancer in general. So they go in and look that up, and the survival for stage 4 lung cancer is pretty short. So it's really important for you to share with your family and to know yourself that this is a different kind of lung cancer. Your survival is likely to be much longer than other lung cancers. And it looks like ALK lung cancer has the longest survival of any adenocarcinoma. So if you're going to be a young non-smoker, ALK lung cancer is the one that you want to get. However, some people say you've won the lottery. I don't really see it that way, because this would be a pretty terrible lottery. But ALK lung cancer has longer survival than other stage 4 lung cancers. You can turn your volume back up now. We've stopped talking about survival. I'll give you a second. The next question that you may have is, how can I make sure my treatment is on track? I want to make sure I have the correct treatment. I'm just learning about this. How can I make sure I'm getting the proper treatment for this illness? So the first thing we want to do, let me move my little self over here. First thing we want to do is to go back in time and make sure you've had the right diagnostic tests for ALK positive lung cancer. And sometimes some of these are skipped, so we want to make sure that you get the same tests that most of the members in our group get. So they've shared with us that they've had a biopsy and biomarker testing, and this is the test for ALK. So you have had this test because you're here. And sometimes it's a tissue biopsy of one of the tumors, and sometimes it can even be a blood biopsy. But you've had a biopsy, you know you're ALK, that's why you're here, that part is done. The other thing that you need to have for this diagnosis is a CT scan of your chest, abdomen, and pelvis. And so this looks for your central region and measures any tumors that might be present there. So a chest CT and abdomen, pelvis, everybody needs to have that. Another extremely important scan is an MRI of the brain. ALK lung cancer tends to metastasize to the brain, probably more so than most other lung cancers. The brain is a really vulnerable place. About 30% of people with ALK positive lung cancer are diagnosed with brain metastases. So it's really important that you have an MRI of your brain at diagnosis to look to see if there's any tumors growing there that we really want to monitor and follow. One of the other things that most of our members do is to get a PET scan, and this is where the entire body is scanned for increased cellular activity. So it can show where cancer is growing, and so it's really scanning the whole body to see if there's any areas of metastasis that might have been missed by the CT scan. There are a series of routine blood tests that should be done at diagnosis, according to most of our patients, or most of our members of our support group. And these tests are regular blood tests like a blood count, liver test, kidney test. And this is because the ALK medicines can actually affect functions in your body like liver and kidney. So we want to make sure we have a baseline of blood tests. So then as you go on the medicine, we can monitor for any changes. So most of our members have had a biopsy and biomarker testing, CT scan of the chest, abdomen, and pelvis, MRI scan of the brain, a PET scan, and then routine blood tests. So this is the diagnostic workup for most of the people who have ALK positive lung cancer in our support group. The next thing I want to talk about that can be monitored, and we like to get a baseline at the beginning of treatment if it is monitored, are tumor markers. Not all doctors monitor tumor markers, only some of them do. So there's a controversy about it, but some of our members do have tumor markers monitored. So I want to tell you about it so you can decide if it's something that you might want to do. Tumor markers are substances in the blood that are made by cancer cells. And so they can go up when the cancer is growing and go down when the cancer is shrinking. But the blood levels of tumor markers are not always reliable. So they're not necessarily a good monitor of what's happening with your tumor. Some experts monitor tumor markers because they want hints about what's happening with the cancer. So you would get a tumor marker at diagnosis and then follow it up with every visit and see if the tumor markers seem to be going down, which means there's a response, or over time if they seem to be going up again, which could mean there's a recurrence. And so, but it's just kind of a hint, you know, it's not reliable enough to really go on. But what a doctor may do is decide to scan more frequently, just keep a closer eye on things if they see those tumor markers going up. The CEA is the most common tumor marker, but there's a few others that we look at for lung cancer. So continuing for tumor markers, we've got a graph here that kind of shows how it works. So the tumor markers, before you have cancer, they're going to be normal, low. Then as the cancer begins to grow, the tumor markers go up. When you start therapy, if they're doing what they're supposed to do, they go down again. And then over time, they may go up again with recurrence. This happens maybe about 75% of times. So it's not completely reliable. Some doctors don't use them because they're worried that it's going to scare people or people will have a false sense of security. So for tumor markers, it's kind of an individual decision as to whether your doctor follows it or not. And it could be up to you if you want to do something like that. So the next question that we have that people ask is, what is the correct treatment for ALK positive lung cancer? So the 3 treatments that have been approved for first line or the first treatments are alectinib, brigatinib, and lorlatinib. There are some others that are approved for first line, but they aren't recommended. So the recommended treatments are alectinib, brigatinib, or lorlatinib. Different doctors use different medicines. It's mostly based on side effects because as far as we know, these medicines are pretty equal. Lorlatinib may be a little better, but we don't have the final research yet on that. But they seem to work very similarly and work equally. ALK inhibitors are called tyrosine kinase inhibitors, TKI. So when you go into our support group, or if you read any literature on ALK lung cancer, they'll use the term TKI. And that means medicines like alectinib, brigatinib, lorlatinib, and others. So TKI means ALK inhibitors, ALK medicines. These TKIs specifically target ALK cells. So You take the medicine by mouth, and then it goes and it finds the ALK cells and it stops them from replicating. So this tyrosine kinase helps them replicate. You inhibit it, and then they can't replicate. So the tyrosine kinase inhibitors goes in and they inhibit the replication of ALK cells. The important thing to know about the TKIs is that they're called targeted therapy. And there's several other targeted therapies in cancers, but an ALK TKI is targeted therapy. You take it orally and it finds specific cells that need to be stopped. It's not immunotherapy and it's not chemotherapy. So you see those commercials on TV for Keytruda, which is an immunotherapy. It does not apply to ALK. They're not talking about ALK. The ALK TKIs are called targeted therapy. Now, because the TKIs don't actually kill the cancer cells, they just stop them from replicating, they don't work quite as well as we would like them to. So the ALK TKI goes in, it keeps the cells from replicating, and then many of them just die off naturally. That's the body's natural process, that cells die off and then they're regenerated. But when you've got that TKI on board, the cells can't regenerate. So cells don't replicate, cells die off naturally, and then the tumors shrink. So that's what we see when people receive these TKI medications. But unfortunately, not all the cells die off, as far as we know. There can be some persister cells or cells that survive, don't die off, and then over time, they can begin to grow again. And what happens is these persister cells can mutate and they outwit the ALK TKI that you're on. So they work around that ALK TKI and they can start to grow again. So those are the medicines for ALK, but importantly, they don't kill the tumors. They just stop them from replicating, that they hold them in suspended animation. So to continue this, because the ALK TKIs don't kill the tumors, they just hold them at bay, you have to take them indefinitely. That if you stop taking the ALK TKIs, the tumors could grow back pretty quickly. Sometimes when you're just starting an ALK TKI, you might have side effects. It might affect the liver or the kidneys. You might feel bad in some ways. And so your doctor will reduce the dose of the ALK TKI or even pause it for a while. That's totally okay. It's totally common. If that happens, don't worry about it. The manufacturers of these drugs have really specific protocols that you follow when you need to reduce the dose and why, and then increasing the dose back up again or reintroducing it. So your doctor can follow this specific protocol and it'll be okay. So try not to worry about it. A couple things that are the incorrect treatment. One is immunotherapies like Keytruda. They are not recommended as a first treatment for ALK positive lung cancer. So if you're on Keytruda, or one of the other immunotherapies, that's something to think about because they are not recommended as a first treatment. The vast majority of the people in our group start with ALK inhibitors. The other thing that some of the experts recommend is if you started chemotherapy before you got your ALK result, they recommend that you actually stop the chemotherapy, you don't finish the course, and you switch over to an ALK inhibitor like alectinib. So that's what several experts say. So it's something to think about. If you're on chemotherapy and you haven't started your ALK inhibitor yet, you may consider just switching over at this point. Move myself again. So another treatment that goes along with the ALK inhibitor, which is controversial, it's not done too often, is what's called local consolidative therapy. And local consolidative therapy is also abbreviated as LCT. And it's something that's done in addition to your ALK TKI. So if you're wondering, well, what can I do besides just take this pill every day? Here's something that you could think about. So LCT are procedures to locally remove or try to eliminate any residual cancer that's there after the TKI, like alectinib, has shrunk the tumors. So you start alectinib or one of the other TKIs, the tumors shrink down, and then tumors that are left over can be removed by surgery or radiation. And the goal of this is try to get out those persister cells, get them out of your body. So surgery, radiation, we want to try to kill those persister cells. So with any luck, you'll be able to stay on TKI like alectinib for longer, because it'll take much longer for the cells to begin growing again, if they do. So in terms of LCT, local consolidative therapy, this has been shown to be effective in other cancers, but not specifically in ALK. So when they do surgery or radiation in general lung cancer, after the tumors have shrunk, then there is an improvement, prognosis improves. For ALK, we don't know yet. There's studies underway, but we just don't have the results yet. So it's not proven to be effective for ALK positive lung cancer. The challenge is that probably LCT is more effective the earlier in treatment, like somewhere between 8 and 12 weeks. So if you're interested in LCT and you've just started treatment, you may want to really take advantage of that window and try to get the treatment before you've been on the TKI for a long time. One of the big problems that I see is that a lot of doctors don't know about LCT for stage 4 lung cancer. They don't know you can add local treatments to the treatments like targeted therapies. And so they tell their patients, well, if you have stage 4 lung cancer, there's no surgery or radiation that you can have. And this is just not true. We have several people in our support group who've had surgery or radiation after starting their TKI. There's quite a bit of research showing that it does help. So if your doctor says no surgery or radiation for stage 4 lung cancer, you probably need to get a second opinion, because that's not really correct. Like I said, we have several people in our group who've had surgery or radiation shortly after starting treatment. So it is done. So next is a bit of a schematic for how local consolidative therapy works. So this is a diagnosis of someone with stage 4 lung cancer. And you'll see they have the large primary tumor here, a smaller tumor here, and then a couple other smaller tumors. And so this is a diagnosis. And the next thing is you start first line treatment. In the case of ALK, it would be an oral targeted therapy. Then the tumors shrink down. So you see this primary tumor is quite a bit smaller. This tumor is pretty much the same size, but then this tumor over here is gone because of the ALK inhibitor. Now, if you stop here and don't do any more treatment except take that ALK inhibitor every day, these tumors are likely to remain stable for a while. So they don't grow back right away. They just kind of hang there in suspended animation. So when you add local consolidative therapy or LCT, you can remove, for example, by surgery, this primary tumor and maybe radiate this little tumor over here. And so then you may have eliminated some of those persister cells that we worry about down the line. So that's how local consolidative therapy works. A lot of people don't want it. They don't want to take that risk because it's not proven to help. Other people may not be good candidates for it. But the way I see it is if some of our members are having this local consolidative therapy, it really should be something that should be offered to everyone, or at least considered for everyone when they're first starting treatment. Because it doesn't seem right to me that some people have the choice to get this treatment and then other people don't. So that's LCT, local consolidative therapy. You can ask your doctor about it. Our next question is, how often should I have blood tests and scans? The answer to this question is based on the experiences of people in our group. So first of all, the scans that you want to have at first, CT scan of the chest and abdomen every 3 months. So the usual for monitoring for TKI treatment is CT chest and abdomen every 3 months. Sometimes they're done earlier when you first start treatment. Now, some doctors choose to do a PET scan every 3 months. That's probably no problem at all. They're similar. and we don't know which one would be better in terms of monitoring this. If you don't have brain metastasis, then you want to have a brain MRI at least every 6 months. That's what our members do. If you have brain metastasis at diagnosis or at any point, you probably would want to have a brain MRI every 3 months. Again, that's what most of our members do. You have blood tests usually every 2 weeks when you first start a TKI medicine. And this is looking for side effects, changes in liver, kidney function, blood counts, cholesterol levels. But then after a while, those blood tests will stretch out to every 3 months. Once you're stable on the medicine, we know what's going on. And then you usually have an oncology visit every 3 months. So you have your scans, your blood tests, and then you see your doctor and they review the results from that. So that usually happens every 3 months. And then, as I mentioned, the brain scan would be every 3 to 6 months, depending on whether you've had brain metastases or not. So that's the usual monitoring that most of our people in our support group have. Now, the hardest question is kind of the psychological effects of ALK positive lung cancer. So how do I adjust to this new normal? This is a huge change for your life, for your family's life, and you want to get back to something that feels somewhat normal, a way to be able to function and find joy in your life. So one of the first things you can look at is palliative care. Some people think that palliative care is for the end of life, and that's not the case. Palliative care is a group of experts who help people live with serious illness. And so lung cancer would be considered in that category. And they can help with pain, they can help with energy levels, they can help with psychological effects. So the palliative care doctors can really provide support to your oncologist. Most cancer centers have palliative care doctors, so you can ask about that and see if you're interested. Another thing that a lot of our members do is to go to counseling. This is such a big change, and it kind of rocks your world. And being able to work with a counselor and try to figure out how you can recover some of the things that you feel like you may have lost with this cancer. Another thing that's super helpful are support groups. And they can be in person. A lot of cancer centers have in-person support groups, or they can be online. And a lot of cancer centers have that too. There's a lot of value in just sitting in a room with people who are going through the same thing, like advanced cancer, and being able to feel like you're not the only one and sharing those experiences. One of the best support groups that you can look at is the ALK Positive support group, which is on the Facebook platform. It's okay to get a Facebook account just for this support group. You don't have to be a regular Facebook user. But our ALK Positive support group, as I mentioned earlier, has thousands of members. There's a lot of support, a lot of experiences are shared there. So that can also be a way to get support. There's also some other ALK Positive groups online on the internet, and they're supportive. Some of them are funny. So it's something to check out. A lot of times the care partner needs some support because this is a huge change in their life too. And there are support groups for care partners. For example, I go to a support group that's for care partners for people with advanced cancers. And I find it extremely helpful. And it's mostly just being with people who I can talk to who are going through the same thing. So support groups, counseling for care partners is really good for family members. Another resource is something called Camp Kesem, which is for children whose parents have cancer, severe cancer. And a lot of people with ALK positive lung cancer are younger and they have young children. So this could be an option for your children to go to a summer camp and be with other children who have parents who have cancer. So that's an option too to help support within the family. I've also seen that the American Cancer Society on their website, they have information of how to talk to children about cancer and to give you support as a parent to try to help your kids deal with this. Some of our members take psychiatric medicines for depression, insomnia, and also energy level, because the ALK positive medicines can sometimes decrease energy. So seeing a psychiatrist to get help with some of those things can be really helpful. Lastly, there's a bunch of other resources that are available for people with lung cancer, not necessarily ALK lung cancer, but lung cancer in general. There's a group called Longevity, which you can find online. They have a lot of cancer support, a lot of information. The website's good. The group is great. They also have a helpline that you can call if you're worried you're not getting the right treatment, there's something you don't understand, you're interested in getting into a clinical trial. This longevity helpline can help you with that. Another organization called GO2 also has a helpline that you can call. And then American Cancer Society has a lot on their website to help you understand lung cancer better. So hopefully these resources can help you adjust to this new normal. A lot of our members take advantage of these. There are other things our members do to improve their quality of life. One is diet, and a lot of people have questions about diet. There's no specific diet that's associated with improved prognosis in ALK-positive lung cancer, but healthy diets can make people feel better. Also, there can be weight gain from the ALK medicines, and following a specific diet might help with the weight gain. So if you're interested in what other people in our group are doing, you can go into the support group and ask, and people will share their experiences with diet. Exercise is also important to help you feel better. Probably doesn't change the prognosis, but we don't know. The other thing why it would be good is because some of the ALK medicines cause muscle soreness, and a lot of our members say that moving and exercising can help with that muscle soreness. So that is an option, is to really look at exercise and how it could help you. A lot of our members take supplements, vitamins and nutritional supplements. There's no specific ones that are recommended for ALK, but if you're interested in what our members do, again, you can go to that support group and find out what members are doing. And we don't recommend it or not recommend it. It's just not known whether those supplements help or not. Another thing a lot of our members do is use cannabis, either edibles or liquid extracts. May help with pain, may help with sleep, may help with some of the psychological issues that come up with cancer. Again, it's not necessarily recommended. It may not change prognosis, but a lot of our members do feel that they benefit from that. The next thing I want to mention is stress reduction. And this is pretty important because ALK lung cancer adds stress. Even if things are going well, you're stable, there's still that stress of having this, severe cancer, and you've got to arrange treatment for it. You have to really kind of deal with it every day. And so reducing your stress, getting other things off your plate so you have more reserve to manage the stress of lung cancer can be really helpful. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. You can ask people to do things that you would normally do. You can stop doing the things that make you too busy and aren't necessary. And one of the things a lot of our members do is look at their workplace and figure out if they can reduce their hours, reduce their stress at work. Some people take disability and don't return to work because they have symptoms. So stress reduction is probably really important for your well-being because ALK lung cancer causes so much stress to begin with. And the other thing you can do for yourself to improve your quality of life is to look into the ALKtALK Wellness Series. And there are wellness activities for people with ALK lung cancer. It's done by Zoom almost every weekday. And there's yoga, art therapy, writing, guided imagery. So there's all kinds of wellness activities that we do with the ALKtALK series. And so if you go into the ALK Positive website, there's a calendar you can download and figure out how you can join the ALK community to improve your quality of life. So finishing up this talk, I want to talk about the ALK Positive website. So ALK Positive is a patient-directed group that's dedicated to improving the life expectancy and the quality of life of people with ALK cancers. So it's a group that was started by patients that really is devoted to moving forward in ALK research, helping quality of life, offering support. There are thousands of people who participate in the ALK Positive group. And they have a website, alkpositive.org, and it's extremely helpful. There's lots of education, there's information about clinical trials, there's newsletters, there's help with fundraising. ALK Positive raises funds and then applies them to research. So ALKpositive.org is a great resource for you. It can also give you a link to join the Facebook support group if you're not in that already. So I'd highly recommend the ALK Positive website. And one of the things that a lot of people say in the support group is, there is hope here. There is hope if you have ALK positive lung cancer. You can hope, your family can hope. It really is an illness that it's not curable, but it can be managed. And so you can manage it and get your life back to something that has joyful experiences, productive. You really can be hopeful with this type of cancer. And lastly, I want to leave you with a quote. It says, "Nah, I'm a tough cookie. Except for the cancer, I'm fine." This quote kind of tells us where you want to be, where you want to get to with ALK positive lung cancer, where you're able to spend wonderful time with your family, maybe work and be productive at work, exercise, be creative, that except for the cancer, you are doing well. And the cancer itself can be managed. So we really want to get you to a place of new normal where your life is rich and fulfilling despite ALK positive lung cancer. So that ends our talk for now. Again, it's just great for you to be here. I'm so glad you're here. I really thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today. I hope that I see you later too. For the next half hour or so, we're going to have people from the ALKtALK group be able to answer your questions on some of the concepts that came up here today or anything else. So thank you. It was great to meet you, and best wishes in managing this illness.
That was an absolutely fabulous presentation by Ellie. And you heard Ellie mention a lot of topics, and I'm going to just add a little bit to some of those. So as we said, this is all about now what, and I'll just be adding a few more things that we can consider when we consider about now what. So we've all been through the stage of total shock. I think I wouldn't be a single person here that wasn't totally shocked at their diagnosis. And it takes a while to settle into the new normal. And the new normal is not going to be the same as the old normal, I'll tell you right now, never, ever. But you can have a new normal, and as Ellie said, your new normal, you can have a rich and fulfilling life. One of the things that you can consider doing, and it's not for everyone, but you definitely can consider, and everyone should consider, volunteering for ALK Positive Inc. And you can be in any country, it's not just for the US people. You can be any educational background, you can have any skills. It's a very rewarding and enjoyable experience. I know Summer and Mark and Jeff would all attest to that. And it also, you get a lot of great friends. I think I can call Summer and Mark and Jeff and tons of other people really good friends now. And by volunteering, and this is extremely important, it helps get us closer to longer survival and cures. Because the reality is, this is not a curable disease at this stage, and anything that we can do to improve our survival and get us closer to cures is helping yourself as well as helping others. So if you are interested in volunteering, contact Lana Smith. As I said, this is being recorded, so you can get that email address when you rewatch the recording. I'm just going to be highlighting a few projects that Ellie's been involved with. Not so much to talk about what Ellie's done, but more to talk about the things that give us hope and things that we can do to help. So one of the things that Ellie's been involved with is the ALK Positive Research Review Committee. And you may not realize, if you're new to the group, that ALK Positive has funded literally millions of dollars of ALK-specific research. And you can learn about this research on the website by going to research and then research grants. And you can read and watch videos and learn all about the research that's been funded by ALK Positive. Ellie has also contributed a great deal to the Clinical Trials Committee. And again, now what? I think everyone should consider joining a clinical trial, regardless of where you live or how well you are doing, or when you were diagnosed, or what stage you are. It doesn't mean that you should join or have to join, but you should at least consider joining and explore it and learn about it. And a great way to explore and learn about clinical trials is to go to a spreadsheet that's on the website. Again, you go to research and then click on clinical trials. And this is a spreadsheet that Ellie has created and improved over the years. Another project that you can participate in is the ALK Positive Lung Cancer Registry and Survey. And by participating, you'll be helping researchers and clinicians improve patient outcomes. So again, by participating, you're helping yourself and your future, as well as the future of other people as well. This is the link, but rather than trying to write it down, you can just go to the website, click on research, and then click on survey/registry, and that will take you to where you can join the registry and survey. And I hope that everyone will participate in that. It's going to provide a lot of incredible information for researchers and clinicians. Another project that Ellie's been working on is helping to raise funds and raise awareness about lung cancer. Lung Cancer Awareness Month is November every year, and we fundraise all year round, but especially around November and December. And Ellie has put together for the last several years wonderful promotions that you can use to create personalized imagery and messaging for your own campaigns. And so at any time, Ellie will help you with that. If you ever want to make donations, just go to our website and click on donate. If you're wanting to make large donations, again, please contact Lonna Smith and she'll help you out with making larger donations, $1,000 or more. Ellie has also contributed regularly to the ALK Positive newsletter. Again, if you have not subscribed to that, I strongly recommend that you do so. There's lots of fabulous articles, lots of updates on clinical trials and all sorts of other things there. Again, just go to the ALK Positive website, there will be a pop-up and you just say that yes, you want to join the newsletter and you'll be subscribed, and you can unsubscribe at any time if you ever wanted to. Also, Ellie has contributed to ALKtALK and summit presentations over the years. ALKtALK, if you want to watch previous ALK talks or previous summit presentations, you can click on ALKtALK on the website and then click on View Past Talks, and that will take you to the ALK Positive YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel has recordings of past summit presentations as well as past ALKtALK presentations. And by watching those presentations, there's just an insane amount of information there. You can become very knowledgeable about ALK Positive, and that will help you to advocate for yourself and also to help others. So everything that I know, everything that Ellie knows, everything that Jeff knows, it's all stuff that we've learnt. We didn't go to a school for it. We didn't go to university courses for it. We learnt by reading, by watching videos, by listening to doctors, and you can do the same and become knowledgeable yourself. And then you can do what I and Ellie have been doing on the support group and helping others by making informed recommendations, or I don't want to use the word recommendations, but provide informed information for others. So just wrapping up, this is a great photo that I took in 2018 before the very first ALK Summit. And on the right, we have Tom Carroll. Tom Carroll founded the ALK Positive Support Group. And without that group having been founded, none of us would have been here together. This ALK talk presentation wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. And Ellie was also there. This is Ellie here. So this is a quite unique photo and one to be treasured. So with that, I'm going to stop share and open up to questions.
You guys want to scroll through the chat?
Sure. So the first question was blood test frequency, and that was already answered in the presentation by Ellie. The next question says, if ALK outwits the TKI, can you switch to another TKI? The short answer is yes, you can. The longer answer is, should you? And the answer is sometimes yes and sometimes no. And there'll be an entire presentation on this topic in a few weeks' time on April the 2nd about what to do if there is progression. So rather than trying to address that now, tune in again for part 3 of the series to learn about if and when one should switch TKIs. And someone here is just thanking Ellie for the great references and links that she always provides. If you see any questions that you want to bring up here, Jeff, please pipe in. Someone has a question here. If I'm presently stage 3, if it metastasizes to my brain, will I be stage 4? And the answer is, if cancer spreads anywhere outside the lung, you're automatically a stage 4. And I want to clarify on that. Once you are stage 4, you never go back to stage 3 or 2 or 1. Even if on the scans it shows no evidence of cancer at all, or if on the scans it shows no evidence of cancer outside the lungs, once you're stage 4, you're always stage 4. Another thank you to Ellie.
So this next one on the immune system, I can start and you want to pick it up after me, Colin. As far as we know, the ALK lung cancer is not real visible to our immune system. So the immune system doesn't really respond. And also, as far as we know, ALK lung cancer doesn't devastate the immune system in that it doesn't tear it down. The disease itself, if you get really sick, can of course have a negative effect on the immune system. But I'll also contribute that it's very important that you keep your immune system in tip-top shape in order to extend survival. And that means eating right, it means minimal alcohol use, etc. Because there's current evidence that survival on TKIs, the medicines for ALK lung cancer, is enhanced by the immune system in certain people, more so in others. So there seems to be, there's not total proof yet, there seems to be evidence that there's an immuno influence on the success of the TKIs. And so it's a complicated issue. Colin, do you have more to say on that?
The only thing I would add, the question specifically is asking whether the TKIs have an impact on the immune system as opposed to the cancer itself. And to the best of our knowledge at this stage, there doesn't appear to be any evidence that the TKIs impact our immune system one way or the other. So as Jeff said, absolutely everybody should eat well, sleep well, exercise moderately, not excessively, because that also depletes the immune system if you exercise excessively. But certainly a balance of diet and exercise and sleep would all be recommended for sure.
I want to throw a question out your way to any of the 3 panelists, and that is, Ellie did mention the effects that diet doesn't control this, exercise doesn't control this, the outcome of ALK longevity. Do you know of anything that is out there on the horizon, like a longitudinal study? Can you give us a little background of what you might be looking at when the people
Absolutely.
fill out the forms?
So I mentioned in my little addendum presentation about the lung cancer registry and encouraged everyone to participate. And in that registry, there are forms specific to diet and exercise and quality of life. And by participating, we at this stage have close to 1,000 participants. We're hoping to get a lot more than that. But the researchers and analysis might be able to find connections between certain types of diet and outcomes. Maybe a high-fat, low-carb diet has an impact, or whatever. We just don't know. But this survey, once it's analysed deeply, might be able to come up with answers to that. Does maybe a moderate amount of exercise improve outcomes? Does it reduce side effects? Maybe it does. So participating in the survey will definitely help. So thank you for that question, Mark.
Dr. Culver, do you have any comments?
I would like to add something, but not about diet. I want everyone to be clear that the language we're using, we're talking about the immune system in ALK tumors. So far, only PD-1 inhibitors have been tried in ALK tumors. And because they didn't show success except for in a few people, that doesn't mean other immunotherapies won't work in ALK positive lung cancer. And so we in the clinical trials and research acceleration group are advocating to make sure that ALK patients aren't excluded from some of these newer immunotherapy trials so that we can find out which ones will work for ALK positive. I think that's an important message. When we talk about immunotherapies, there are lots of them, and only really one has been tested so far.
There's a question here I just want to throw out to you guys. A person who's had 8 years of stage 4 lung cancer, she's never had a brain metastasis, but it sounds like her oncologist won't give her a brain MRI. Is it time for her to switch oncologists? Or stay? Jeff's not said yes.
Well, either that or get a second opinion from one of the ALK specialists that in turn will write a letter to her doctor.
Good advice. The other thing I would like to bring up is the staging or the sequencing of TKIs. And Ellie mentioned the 3 first-line TKIs that have been, if you are on an old TKI, seratinib as an example, is this another talk? I'm not too sure, but would you have switched at this stage of the game? Maybe Dr. Culver can answer that.
Well, I'm probably not, every case is uniquely different, Mark. But I think one of the fundamental issues is don't mess with success.
Interesting. Okay. Colin, Jeff, you guys concur?
Well, yeah, I mean, upon progression, the first thing you want to do is get a biopsy, if you can, and determine from that biopsy how your cancer has mutated, and in turn match the follow-on TKI to the nature of your mutation. And it's really just arithmetic. If you've got a G1202R mutation, you go to lorlatinib immediately.
I think that's Colin's part, but the other thing too, the LCT, which I don't think many of us realize that it's out there for us. And maybe the people on the 91 people are still with us, maybe they're past the point, but do you find that, I know there's an EGFR study out there, but do you think that, is there a study right now for ALK about the LCT?
In the works.
As Ellie mentioned, there is a study that's ongoing at the moment. Just doesn't have, Ellie did mention that in the presentation. So the results from that study, the study is not concluded. They don't have any analysis presented, so we don't know the answers yet.
So there's someone that's going to get an LCT consultation So do you think that was it 8 to 12 weeks was the range after you start your TKI?
So that's what Ellie mentioned in the presentation, and that seems to be the opinion of most of the experts. Again, there's nothing cast in stone. Certainly, if you're past the 12-week stage, if you're at 6 months or 12 months or even 2 years, I don't think that in any way stops you from getting LCT done. And I know, I had radiation done, so I was diagnosed back in 2016. There was no discussion of LCT until the last 3 or 4 years with regards to ALK in a general sense. So I certainly didn't get it done until about 2 years ago, but I did have it done 2 years ago, and it's held everything stable for me since. So,
and I've had some people in our group that I know that after 3 or 4 years of being stable on alectinib, let's say, they still have residual lung tissue that's damaged. So some people want to have surgery, removing the lobe or radiation. Is that still available to those people, do you think?
I'll also allow Ken to dive in here, but certainly every case is different. In my particular case, I couldn't get surgery done because it's inaccessible. And so radiation was the way for me, but every case is very different.
And I thank you, Colin. I'd like to add to that. As a physician, in listening to what people are saying, there's an art of medicine in caring for patients without lung cancer. It's not a cookie cutter. You don't go to the NCCN guidelines and look down the list of the approved TKIs and just follow it. You have to think about the patient in front of you. Where are they? Where's their cancer? What do we know about the biology, the molecular status of their cancer? All that taken together is how you make a decision. And of course, a key part of that is your opinion. So as patients, we want to make sure we know as much as we can so we can discern, is my doctor just treating me like any lung cancer patient, or is my doctor treating me as an ALK lung cancer patient?
And a big controversy, I think that's a great point, Ken. But the other controversy, which is interesting to me, is we have some people that do get blood tests and we have some that don't. My doctor does not do blood tests for CEA levels. So once if you like a patient who was not at a baseline, is it too late to start a baseline CEA? Or what do you think, Colin, Jeff? I think both you guys did CEA tests, don't you? Blood tests?
So for myself, I do, we call it the CAMH tumor markers. There's 4 markers that Dr. Ross Camage at University of Colorado, he's actually published a paper about this. And again, as Ellie pointed out very clearly, it's not something that gives definitive indications, but it gives hints to the oncologist if the oncologist knows how to use those. Again, you can do it at any time. Certainly, it wasn't something I was aware of for the first couple of years of my diagnosis, but I started doing it once I did find out about it after a couple of years. And I've been doing it for the last 4 or 5 years now.
And you have not progressed since you started doing it, have you?
I had wasn't quite technically progression, but in reality it was progression. I just managed to pick it up earlier on by following my PET scan SUV values, and that's when I had the radiation done. So
was
that's
it
another
picked up in your blood or no?
Not at that stage, because I picked it up early enough to get on top of it before it impacted blood levels.
So while we're on this topic, I mean, it's important to note that you can use locally consolidated therapy, particularly in the form of targeted radiation, if you have one small place of recurrence. So I've done that 4 times. Mark, you've done it as well, I think, haven't you?
I think I light up when I walk through a TSA line.
where so Dr. and I'll be talking about this next month in my session on creating and managing your care team. But second opinion doctor these days will often tell you, no, don't switch to chemo. You don't necessarily have to switch your TKI yet if there's only one spot. And you can use stereotactic radiation to kill that one spot, because in Dr. Camage's words, it might be only one cell that's figured it out and managed to evolve. So there are uses for local consolidated therapy all the way along the line to extend the use in the life of your TKIs.
Okay, Jeff, you scared the hell out of me, but okay, I get the analogy of one cell, but the
Sorry,
other
Mark.
question, I said you're yeah, exactly.
And we'll be covering that in the presentation that I do on progression.
Right,
So,
and
yeah.
I want to pass along to everybody that these set of videos that we're doing and the Q&A that we're doing are really given to future patients probably, and are also giving to people along different paths of their journey, or maybe if you're a mentor or if you know somebody, you know, people contact me constantly that I'm some expert, and I'm not, like Colin said. You have to watch videos, you have to read, you have to educate yourself, you have to be your own advocate. And that is it. I am just some schmo with a Zoom account. I have had this for, I'm going on my 10th year, but I am not a rocket scientist. When I go on Tuesday to see my doctor, and I know my results of my scan, but I don't know everything of my scan. You know, but at least it gives me some idea of what I'm dealing with and what we're going through. And as a group, we can be so much more powerful now and have so much more knowledge to bring. So I appreciate everyone coming. I don't know if you want to do a quick scroll of any of the questions that we might have missed. Some of them really are more for future ones, future sessions. But I don't know if you want to hit some of those quickly.
I see a question that says, are we at risk for or increased risk for infections? And again, Ken can definitely weigh in here, but the answer would be it depends on the individual situation. If you got diagnosed without a whole lot of symptoms, without a whole lot of lung damage, if you didn't have chemotherapy, if everything's been going very routinely, probably your risk of infections is no different to what it was before. On the other hand, if you got diagnosed and you're in very bad shape, if you had chemotherapy, I would suspect that you may be at increased risk for infections. Would you want to add to that, Ken?
Nicely said, Colin. Again, that's back to having a physician who's going to take into consideration all of those things to make sure you're getting the right care and protection or prevention, let's say, from those kinds of complications.
So someone's got a question here. Does anyone have any understanding how the TKIs affect our DNA? For example, many of us who had straight hair now have curly or frizzy hair. There's also been discussion of changes in fingerprints and nails. Do you want to address that one, Ken?
Yeah, that's a tough one, I have to say.
That's why I'm passing it on to you.
Yeah, thank you. Those don't have to be DNA changes for those things to happen. There are a lot of cellular processes that go on after the DNA encodes RNA, which encodes protein. There are a lot of steps. I don't know that there's any evidence that the TKIs are affecting DNA straight away, but obviously they affect other pathways, and that's why you can get different profiles of side effects with the different TKIs.
I just want to remind, this question was asked during the summit, and the answer from Dr. Camage was the following: these are new drugs, and we don't know all the side effects, and some of these drugs, some other drugs have been on the market for multiple years, where ours have been on the market for what, 6-8 years, tops, Lorlatinib was approved 2019. So we're still trying to figure out what are the side effects. So,
and I'm going to add there's something called the registry and survey. And
good point.
So there's an extensive section on side effects and adverse effects that patients experience. And by everyone contributing to that, we'll be able to share that information with oncologists and researchers and give them some clues about things that they may not have realized otherwise.
And I
There's
wanted to, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Summer.
I just wanted to follow up too. And again, I loved how Ellie said, you don't have to be a Facebook participant or avid user to take advantage of the support group. And a lot of people come on, again, part of the reason why this whole series was created, but will come on and say like, I'm dealing with weight gain. And my oncologist said, absolutely not. It is not from you know, my treatment. And then you have all these other people saying, yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, and I can answer, like, when I was on alectinib, my hair was crazy. I was like losing some, it was frizzy. I remember thinking I was going crazy because I could walk miles, but going up the stairs, it felt like I had sandbags tied to my ankles. Well, guess what? Validation, guys. I like type it in the search bar in the Facebook support group, and I'm like yelling to my husband, I'm not. I mean, probably I was for other reasons, walnuts, but TKI, I'm sure. Anyway, but that it provides so much validation for us when we're being told by people not who haven't lived this. And that's what I think is huge. I did see a question too about the alectinib belly. And I would say too that I mean, we don't lose our hair right away if we're not taking chemo, but our body does go through other changes. And one that is so common across the board is weight gain. Also, maybe loss of words, and that was kind of interesting at Summit, which I'm going to hit on also in a second, because that again was validation, because people are all there complaining about their weight gain or losing words. And my father, who was with me, was like, I think you were like that anyway, Summer. But then I'm sitting talking to other people, and somebody's wife was like, he does that all the time. So again, that like common ground, there's no reason in 2023 for you to be floating through this journey by yourself. Whether you hop on to a healing arts class with us, or you silently scroll through and read, again, just for that validation that is so important. I will tell you my own little story about the alectinib belly or TKI weight gain. So for my own kids, they were not used to, you know, I was in shape and had always exercised. And of course, you know, in life, you go up and down. But that was one of the pieces. Once I recovered and wasn't so ill, that was a change that they saw on me, that I had gained weight. And they were so supportive and happy to have their mother alive for sure, but it was just kind of different for them. My 13-year-old was like, you could run with me, Mom. I'm like, oh, maybe somebody's chasing me, I can run, maybe. But anyway, and it's a mind game, right? Because let me tell you, we have a candy drawer at our house. I'm a sugar addict. I was like doing cartwheels when I found out that I had this diagnosis, and I didn't have to cut out sugar, because with other cancers, you know, they tell you to stay away. So like, I think in my head, like, how long can I eat cinnamon bears? I want handfuls of that. And I want all of these things. And it's true. It is so true. But I did finally, like, I'm at 2.5 years in, I was like, okay, I don't, you know, I'm stable, knock on wood. I hate, scared to even say that out loud. Right. But I was like, okay, that's it. I need to take this back. I always love working out. The more I move, the less I feel the symptoms of muscle fatigue and muscle soreness. I have a 22-year-old with cerebral palsy that I have to carry around, so I have to stay in shape for him. But I did just want to say it is possible. And people, again, in that support group write all the time about intermittent fasting and about reducing carbs. And I'm on like day 40 of like nutritional changes for myself. I'm so proud of myself. But finally, I like got over that. But it is a mind game. And I'm giving you that validation too, that yes, the TKIs do make you gain weight. So whoever's oncologist told them they don't, they do. And there's enough people in the support group to tell you that that is true. We all go through it. But also, if you're at the right spot in your story that you want to make that change, that is possible too. And I think there's a couple different ALK nutrition groups and ALK walking group and stuff like that. But yeah, I did want to express that. Also, I mentioned the summit briefly, and that was also a question. Mark and I and Ken are all working on the summit committee. Also, I've been to, I think right when I was diagnosed, there was the first summit that was virtual. And then in 2021, I worked on another virtual one. Last year was my first time in Denver and flying that far. And my dad and I went together. He's on some of the medical committees. But what an experience. So great to meet all the people that I see in ALK Talks and meet in the healing arts classes. And again, it's a bond like no other. It's not like even just meeting another cancer patient or another lung cancer patient. And I have empathy for all of them, but I am an ALK snob a little bit, and I just love my ALK people, and nothing compares. So whether you register virtually, whether you come in person, it will be in Philly. And it will be July 21st through 23rd. And Dan and Britt Wilson are doing a fabulous job chairing that committee, and they will be releasing like later this week, I believe, the registration and hotel information. Again, whether you decide virtually or in person is for you. But again, another amazing opportunity to come, learn from ALK experts, and just leading thoracic palliative care professionals in the industry, and then also to make those connections with people. I cannot, as outgoing as I am, I will tell you, I'm kind of an introvert. Like, I need a job. But then I know, Ken, it's a true story.
Introverts. Okay, you
What?
introvert. I'm kicking you off the Zoom.
It's so nice
Hold
to
on,
meet
let
everybody,
me
and
share
you
this
can't
real quick.
replace it. Okay, somebody cut me off. Thank you all.
All right. Well, this is our ALK Talk calendar. For those of you who do not know how to find this, ALKpositive.org, what Colin showed you. This is our calendar for March 23rd. March 2023. We do not have one empty day of the week, I don't think. So if you want to meet other ALK patients or ALK members, hop on one of these. Next Sunday is Dr. Jamie Schneider, who will talk to us. She's from Massachusetts General Hospital. And then Jeff Serm will be talking on the 19th, our part 2 series. Jeff, very quickly, what is part 2 going to look like?
Well, it's going to be about all of the different elements that make up an optimal care team. And it's going to start out with the theory that the more you know and the better job you do of managing your own caregivers and upgrading your caregivers as time goes on, the better you're going to do in the long run, with the major aspect being that you need an ALK expert on your side, one of the second opinion doctors, to be advising you at the critical points where there's a recurrence, for example, or something else comes up. In addition to having a very efficient local clinic that takes care of you cleanly and compassionately and conveniently. So I think we're going to benefit a bit from my wife's 12 years of breast cancer experience, my 10 years of prostate cancer experience, and 8 years of ALK lung cancer experience, and just how to navigate the many different systems that are out there. And hopefully it'll be a bit entertaining. I'll tell some stories and we'll have some fun.
Great. And I know, Colin, you're coming on in April. And so we'll have Mark Muskovich and Emily Benanzi come on as our 4th. So it'll be exciting times, and spread the word. And hopefully we'll get this recording out in time soon, summer, right? And sorry for all the miscues, but
It will
thank you
take
for
me a
joining
little
us.
longer because I'm going to just splice. So bear with
Yeah.
me, everyone, but it will be out. I got to work some magic.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.